Nick Troquato. Everybody calls you something else, Troquato, or what do you want to go
Yeah.
by here? What's the official line from the man himself?
Man, I mean, you can call me Nick. Yeah, my last name's pronounced Troquato.
Okay.
Some of my friends called me Traps because I used to have giant traps back in the day. But so some people know me as Traps. But yeah, some people call me Troquato. But yeah, Nick is
Yeah.
cool too. Whatever works.
Very good. So, well, yeah, we'll go with Traps Troquato.
There we
Um,
go.
uh, so,
Trapquato. Some people call me Trapquato too.
oh yeah, there you go. Combination of the two. We learned something here to start it off. Um, you've had an amazing journey. You've transformed yourself massively over this last sort of 18 months, 2 years. I'm not sure exactly when you got into ATG for coaches, and then through Uncommon Success, you've also been doing some work with Dylan Fowler, a good friend of mine from Australia. You have not stopped. You've been relentless in improving yourself with your training and with improving your business. And I dare say, if you'd have known that you were going to be in this position, if I'd have told you were going to be in this position when we first spoke, you wouldn't have believed it, and you would have thought there was no possible way. Now you're here today, and you've got some stories to tell. So that's the goal here, to kind of share a bit. Um, give us a bit of background on where you were at with your career when you first kind of connected in with ATG and this journey.
Yeah, yeah, Keegan. I mean, it's been a ride, man. Back to 2019 was when I first started seeing, your content and your work.
Yep.
And I just remember, at that point in my life, I was very lost. I was, dealing with a low back injury that had been, trying to rehab for the last 2 years at that point.
Yep.
And I wanted to get stronger. I didn't know how. I was doing the conventional methods, and really, I had lost hope at that point. I was, really starting to think about kind of taking like the easy way out and, you know, get a job that I could just, do, and that was easy, and that would, give me stable money and benefits, um, and I knew I didn't want to do that. But at that point, I was coaching. I think I had two clients, and this was 2019, like right around this time of the year, like April, May of 2019. Just a couple clients. Really didn't see a future in coaching, and in my immediate circle, there weren't any coaches that I wanted to be like, and no one was living the life that I wanted to live. And then I started seeing your content on Instagram, and I remember just the you were talking about the story of like living the uncommon life and how there's more than just the 9 to 5, and how there's more possibilities out there, and that really connected with me. And that's when I joined Real Movement. So that was back 2019. I didn't have a call with you though
No.
until later. So because at that point I was kind of 1 foot in, 1 foot out. I was thinking about becoming a firefighter at
Yeah, that's
that
how
point.
most people start, right? Like you kind of sign up for something, but you're like, oh, I'm not sure if this is for me. I'm a bit scared. Am I good enough? Is this good enough? Like you have all that dialogue going on. I do remember when we first spoke and we were talking about, I think I was really excited about you building a solution for firefighters, right? I think that was the big piece when we actually did finally, get on a call and talk some strategy.
Yeah, and that was 2021. So that was a year later. So before that, I did a Find Me, and I was also coaching. And the gym that I was coaching at was during COVID. I was working there 2 days a week, and then I started getting really busy because I was there the whole day. And that's where really the wheels started turning. Like I started getting that gut feeling that like this was what I wanted to do, and this is the route that I needed to go down. And so I listened to my gut, and in 2021, I joined ATG, and I had been, following your work all along. And finally, like I started practicing the ATG system, and that was springtime of 21. And then that's when we connected in, it was around, like late spring, early summer of 21. And that's when I was thinking about helping firefighters, because I was, had just thought about becoming a firefighter, and and I still wanted to help them. But basically what happened with that is that I realized just how much red tape there was with trying to work with the fire department, and I decided to start branching away from that and go more into really back into my roots, which is grappling.
Yeah. So yeah, I think I just spotlighted Eamon for some reason. I think I was trying to spotlight you. Sorry, brother. But Eamon and Johnny on here too, which is super relevant for this conversation. What you're talking about today and the journey that you've been on is pretty much exactly where I think John and Eamon are both looking to go on this similar sort of journey, and they're similar place to where you were, maybe the point that you're just talking about there at the moment. So you're thinking about the firefighting stuff and you took some action with that. You definitely were making some plans around programs. You were talking to the heads of departments and whatnot, and you were kind of going down that path. Do you regret now, like, that you sort of looked into that, or how do you look back at that experience?
No, I'm glad I did it, because it was action steps, and even though it wasn't the right path for me, it was something. So I was in motion at that point, then I was able to just kind of realize that that wasn't the right path. And I worked for fire department, and I trained their academy, and that was 2021. That was the fall of 21. And at that point I was thinking about, really, I was considering trying to really dive into coaching firefighters and working with them, on the outside. But
Yep.
and I was even talking with the coach that I was working with, and he was talking about bringing me on board to help him, test the firefighters, help with their physical fitness. But it just didn't pan out, and just there was always a roadblock, and he was going to have to go to like his higher ups and deal with, like, he was going to have to present bringing me on board to the board of supervisors, and it never panned out, never worked out.
Yeah. That idea of let's change the system and let's get in and make a real difference is a noble one, and it's one that a lot of guys come to me with, of like, oh, I'm changing the schooling thing, or something the government's doing, or something the police force is doing, and it's great. Like the army, Ben Patrick actually did go and get to present to the US Army, which is pretty damn cool as far as all that stuff goes. But um, I think it's good, and we should go after that. I don't discourage people from going after the government connections. Like Lyndon's had a lot of success with that way of thinking about connecting to the US government with his old project, and now Vanuatu government with his new project. But at the same time, it's good to have something that you're doing privately that is more under your control, and that you're not going to have to wait for different permissions and things. So yeah, I think that's a good one to bring up, because it comes up for a lot of people. The BJJ scene, and maybe this is where Johnny and Eamon have sort of tuned in for as well. You guys are welcome to ask any questions, and we'll go to, wherever you want to go as well as we go through the conversation. Transitioning then into wrestling, like you've been a wrestler, for a long time. You've put serious amount of thought and effort into being able to develop that physical ability for yourself, and then you got introduced to sort of real movement, and then ATG, and all of these methods that you would have probably liked to have had as a collegiate wrestler.
Yeah.
How was it initially then, like transitioning, when you sort of realized, okay, the firefighting path is maybe not the path? What was it like at the start there?
Well, that was 2022, and basically I was just at that point I had started to get really busy in person. I had a packed schedule, and I was helping all sorts of different people. And I'd been working with Ben Clarefield a little bit on periodization and the Polkland periodization and programming. And I was working with a couple of different fighters and just all sorts of different people. So what kind of brought me back to wrestling was one of the local junior college wrestlers here in Sacramento. he reached out to me and he asked me if I would want to train the team. And I said, absolutely. And this was like a year ago. And I remember kind of having this surreal moment where I was like, oh, this is natural. This is like the right thing. Like I need to give, like, I am a grappler. I'm a wrestler. Like I need to help my people. Like these people, like I connect with on a different level. So that when I started training the junior college team, they're called Sacramento City College. That's when I first started getting back into training grapplers, and I trained them through the summer, the fall. They did all right this last year. They took fourth in the state, which is not bad, but like speaking of like a culture of success, like we have an uncommon success, like they have a culture of success, and I'm helping to improve the culture that we have there, because there's been a long line of success. So the goal is to win state and to create champions, and now it's been cool because I'm training them in the off season, so I'm going to get a full year with them, and then on top of that, with as far as my work with grapplers, I've been giving back to my high school, who I started training this last month. So that's been really cool.
How has that work with with those teams impacted the way you look at your business as well? Like, is it purely a distraction, or do you actually draw confidence from it? Does it actually help with sales calls and with knowing that your program's really good because you're getting that face to face? Like, how do you think it interacts with your private business and making money?
I think it definitely helps. It definitely helps. I'm like with my high school, they're not paying me. It's all pro bono. I'm giving back to them, but at the same time, like they're going to pay me in progress, and they're going to pay me in success, and their success is going to be my success. So I know that even though they're not paying me financially right now, like over the next year, like as they see success, like people are going to wonder who's been training them, and that guy's me.
How
So,
much difference can you make? Like, what are you doing with them that gives you confidence to say that?
well, it's a combination of the principles of range training and long range, short range that you've been preaching, for years. And it's which is ATG, and then recently it's been I've been getting into the conjugate method, and that's where I've been starting to bring my focus to. I've seen a lot of high level strength coaches using it with grapplers
Yeah.
and with MMA fighters, and I've been diving into it, and I really like the principles that it incorporates as far as like moving heavy weight, um, for moving heavy weight for parts of the body, but then also moving quickly. And I think it does a really good job of hitting both parts of the strength curve. So I don't think there's a lot of coaches out there, at least at the high school level, who are implementing that kind of training. So I think that's what's going to be differentiating about my approach.
And I think I told you about George Hackenschmidt like a few times before you eventually went and looked him up. I kept talking about him. Ben Patrick talks about him as well. Ben talks about him because he could still jump over a chair when he was in his 80s. But I was talking about him because he was undefeated as a wrestler and he was crazy strong. And so if you can have those kids crazy strong, like some people tell you it's all about technique and it's all about this and that. But if you're 10, 15, 20% stronger, it's a big competitive advantage. That's what I was looking for with the rugby team. And we did use a conjugate approach. We had a day where we were almost always using the bands. And yeah, like that was a big part of what we did. We also did a lot of weightlifting, and then we did maximal strength. Like we did more singles than any other teams. We did more banded work than most teams. And then we still had that touch of, at that time, it was kind of the influence of Ido Portal in terms of kind of movement quality and getting him into deep squats and that kind of thing. And even Dan John was kind of pushing that story way back. Yeah, I can go with you on that. Like, I do think there is a competitive advantage to be gained there, especially if you're delivering it with confidence and you're really challenging these young men of building something of themselves, and the stories that go with it can definitely contribute to the wins as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Keegan, when you trained those when you trained the Roosters, how many times a week would you train them?
Depends on the split. So usually preseason was 4 strength sessions. We'd go twice lower body and twice upper body. And a lot of other teams wouldn't be in the gym that many times, and they definitely wouldn't train legs that many times. And so we got more leg sessions. But then a lot of the sessions were only like 25 minutes. Like it was literally like we would do, 3 minutes of kind of like a general prep circuit, maybe 5 movements. They'll go through that twice, get themselves moving. We'd do a weightlifting little block, or just straight into like one heavy lift that was pretty much going to a single. And then they would usually from there, like they usually do weightlifting, a single, and then do like a circuit of assistance stuff, which was often like posterior chain at that time. So it might look like push up, chin up, skipping, hold a squat position, or jump up onto a box. That kind of thing is just in a row for like 2-3 minutes to get through that. And then they might do a power snatch, and then they might do a front squat or a back squat. And I finally, made them actually squat deep. And then we'd go from there into a posterior chain circuit of like pull throughs, back extensions, these kinds of movements, sometimes the forward sled drag. That was pretty much the session. Then we might have like a push-up challenge or something to finish. There was usually like something kind of fun within it. It might be ab wheels, but every session so when they're doing that power snatch, like I would have it written on the paper exactly what they had to hit, and it was an all-time personal best for them, and it was like, that's the way you're going to hit, and then like move on when you've done it. And it was like,
Wow.
That was the standards that we set. We just had the numbers all the time, and I put the numbers up on the walls. I put the number to the head coach, and that's how we did it. We ran on the numbers, on the metrics, and that's effectively where we're getting to with Uncommon Success now. Is like, if we're serious about this thing, if we're going to get a lot of guys to 30K plus a month, we need to have the metrics. We need to be tracking numbers, and we've got a lot of work to do on the business numbers side of things, but you can see how things are coming together, where we're starting to be able to really see, what are the numbers for this guy. And even just with tracking the physical numbers, I can see the change in attitude and culture across this group. And so, that was pretty much it, Nick. And then in season, we would usually train legs like first thing in the week, usually 2 days after the game. So say if we played Friday night, we wouldn't probably usually be doing strength till Monday, but sometimes we did it on Sunday. If we played Saturday, then we'd go, like heavy legs Monday, early in the week, furthest away from the game. They hated it, but initially they hated it, and then they just got used to it and just get on with it as they do. And then, usually like speed bench, something like that midweek, and then like a little pump top up sort of session just the day before the game. But it really depends on the week. Like it's quite variable, the schedule. You can have like Friday to Sunday, or you can have Monday to Saturday. And it's like, it really is kind of all over the place with the way it was at that stage anyway, with the scheduling.
Right. Man, I think just the amount of success that you had with that team has always really stood out to me. I mean, like you took them from like, you guys they were last before, right? Before you got there.
I think they came 13th. I think they were like 13th out of 15, maybe the year before in 2012. The French team were last the year before we were there. And then they made the finals the first year, and then held first place for a number of weeks the second year. So had 3 years in a row where it just went like, with the teams that I was with. And then, 2018 and 19, I got to go back as a consultant, and they won both of those years as well. So I got to be there for the 3 premierships that they won were the 3 years that I was there. So there's definitely some degree of luck and coincidence with being there for all 3, but there's something that was going on as well. And Pat Lane was my assistant in the 2014 season. 2014, I was sort of there part-time. It was a bit of a mess, but Pat Lane was my assistant, and then he's gone on then to become the strength coach. So he coached them. He was the strength coach for their 2 premierships at like 25, 26, which is like unheard of to be the head of to be running the gym at that age. But he ran it with a very similar approach. And I'm very proud of, those stories. As I said today on my Instagram, like I don't collect Rolexes, but I fucking love all these stories of men that I know who they were when we started, and then I know where they got to. And there's too many of them now for it to be a coincidence. So I just want to keep doing that for the rest of my days, I think.
Yeah, yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing, Keegan. Yeah, I think I've always been interested, especially in like the X's and the O's of what you did within the training sessions with that team, because obviously there was so much success with it. Do you have that written down anywhere? Is that like, do you still have it with you?
Some of the guys have it because I started my first seminars after that season and I gave them all the programs from the year in the book that I made. So I gave out this booklet and I know a few of the guys still have the booklet because a bunch of those coaches ended up having like the best gym in town and doing really cool stuff, working in pro sports and whatnot. Patrick Lane was one of those. So he came to my workshop and then he was the guy asking the most questions. And then I took him on as an intern for that next season. So yeah, I can remember what the spreadsheet looked like and what the things were, but that computer like melted down at some stage. So, but it was very simple. What was crazy about it was we changed the core movements pretty much every week, which no one else does that. Like I didn't block, so literally like how Westside does. And a very experienced coach who's won across multiple sports is like, oh, you'll make him too sore with that. Like, you can't do that. It's too much variation. But, you know, history tells a story. Like we did something very
Yeah,
different and they adapted to it. Okay. It was very low volume, Nick. I think that was the key because it was like singles and no one else really did singles either. People would say like, how can you do singles? Like you're going to fry them. But they weren't singles where they were grinding the shit out of it. They weren't missing reps. It wasn't full West Side in that sense. It was like to a smooth, heavy single. And yeah, they got better at all those movements. A lot of the teams weren't even doing those movements, and they definitely weren't doing them in the same ways. I know I could do it a lot better now in lots of ways, but um, yeah, they were very simple as well. I think that's what the players loved. Like I looked at their old programs and I look at a lot of programs out there now. It's this massive fucking shopping list of stuff. And it's like there's so many exercises that there's no way the players are going to focus on, they just want to get through that thing, get the hell out of there. Like it's fair enough. Like they're not necessarily doing the thing because they love weights. They're doing the thing because they love their sport and because so they loved that. It was like, okay, I need you to focus on these two movements and give me a best and then just pump through this other stuff, do it well, but pump through it. And then you're out of here. And it was like 25 minutes later, they were off doing whatever they had next, which was video or field or, it's not, pro sport is not the scene that most people think it is. And they liked that they were up tempo sort of sessions and they were very goal driven, numbers driven. Yeah, I have written a bit about sort of why I think it was successful. I still don't think anyone's run a program like we did then. Now I would go even crazier. I would bring in more skill. I would bring in more acrobatics. I would go harder after the short range stuff. I didn't know about that at the time. So a lot of players had niggles and I didn't really have the answer. I was just like, work with a physio and get on with it. I didn't know at that time. Like no one knew. Young
yeah,
coaches don't understand. Like literally, it was just send them to the physio, and then the physio would do a bunch of stuff, and then it was a whole different world as far as dealing with tendons, especially and just niggly joint things. So
yeah,
yeah, it's exciting to think of where it's going to go because this movement is only just really starting to penetrate like elite sport, and it's still a long way to go in terms of getting the concepts into the strength culture of the world. So hopefully, I'm going to get a
yeah.
chance up there with Mark Bell when I come up to Sacramento to spread the message again. It'll be better than being on the phone like last time. It wasn't so good.
Yeah. Well, a lot of stuff to dive into on that. I've several different comments, but you're going to be in Sacramento for the next couple of days, right?
Yeah, I'm planning to head up around Sunday. So yeah, when you get back, I will still be there. And then Ben Patrick's doing an event in San Francisco on the 22nd, and we're going to get a few days together there in San
Cool.
Francisco. So it's going to be good.
Awesome. Awesome, man. We're going to be able to connect next week. That's going to be
Yep.
really cool.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
it's always fun. It's always more fun
Yeah.
to actually get to meet face to face.
Yeah. There's you said several different things. There's a bunch of things to dive into. For the first thing that really stood out, it was about the grinding reps. I think that you're spot on with I think it makes sense how much success you had and that you didn't do so many grinding reps because I think that I'm not a huge fan of grinding reps. I think that when you start grinding, like that's where you start getting into the injury territory. And I think if you make it smooth, like there's a way to really still try to push the intensity, but focus on the form without grinding. And the way I look at grinding reps is like it's just too heavy. Like it needs to be a little bit lighter.
Yep.
So that's what I try to implement with the teams that I'm coaching.
I think it's a smart way to go.
Yeah, yeah. Um, the short sessions, I think there's something to that. The like the blocks, like your main block. Like what I've been doing is uh, doing heavy either upper or lower, and then fast for the opposite part of the body. So
Yep.
they'll do their supersets. I think the up tempo is spot on. And it's interesting because rugby and wrestling and grappling are pretty similar as far as sports. You know, like pretty continuous, but you have to be explosive. Like there's a lot of similarities. I would put those two sports closer together than a lot of other sports. Arguably the most with grappling and rugby. Yeah, I love the up tempo work. And then I think that getting that pump, that auxiliary block to get the pump,
Yeah.
that's amazing too. The short range, I'm you know, I was the same way. Like before ATG, I had no idea about the short range movements. I'm really experiencing now just how powerful those are with different injuries that I've had. I've been working with Yorgos, range training man, and he's been teaching me a lot about the bands and all the short range work, and it's incredible. Like, and I've been using it with clients who have little niggles, and they're telling me like, man, like it's working, it's feeling better. It's just so cool to hear.
Yeah. Right. It's hard to put into words. Like I had 20 years of tendonitis. I had my first tendonitis at 10. So I really had almost 30 years of tendonitis. And then once I had this, like I've been able to get back to do everything. And I can go after the one arm chin up and I don't get tendonitis in my forearms. Like it's so much fun. It's so good to, like, you just don't have to have that same constant kind of fear of overdoing it. And yeah, still a lot of guys haven't really understood the underlying principles. And I think that's what Giorgio is so, I think he's like me, like he's been really kind of injury prone or prone to over pushing it. And so for guys like us, it's like heaven. It's the best thing to have tools that, you know, if you kind of overdo it in volume or speed, then you can undo that faster than just kind of waiting for things to get better or going to physios. Like I gave up on going to therapy a long time ago because it's like, yeah, this is not, doesn't get results fast. It's unreliable. It's expensive. And that's just my experience. Obviously there's great practitioners out there and there's guys who know different things, but back to you, because you've taken over the conversation a bit my side, but it's good to go back and forward. What about the neck and the like kind of the specialties? Like what's different around BJJ, wrestling, grappling that most guys probably haven't put emphasis on that they could really learn from things that you're doing?
Yeah, I think the neck work is really important. Just working all motions of the neck, the rotation, flexion, extension. Like I've been really getting into the band work for that. And
did you see the way Nico was doing it with the?
Did he put it on the front of his head and was doing
Yeah,
that?
he's kind of like using like a single band and then like wrap it around and then kind of wrap it on itself, and it sort of creates torque with it. I hadn't really seen anyone doing it like that with a single thickness of band instead of the normal, like a broken band effectively instead of the full one.
I don't know if I've seen that. Is it like a floss band?
No, he was doing it with just the normal bands, but he just has a couple that are snapped, like the kind of West Side bands, power bands.
Like the rug bands, the long ones.
Yeah. So you like snapped and then like say you wrap it around your head, but then you like fold it under so it sort of sticks on itself, and because you've got it under tension, it sort of stays on there. And then
No, I haven't seen
creates
that.
like a single pull point. It's sort of different for creating like rotational torque. You know, I'll have to, it's probably back there in his archive, or we can ask him about it in the athletic chat. He's
I'm gonna write that down.
he's pretty inventive. Giorgo's really inventive guy as well. It's
Yeah.
fun to think where all this stuff's going to go in the near future. We've got people like Brian Michelson pushing the natural patterns kind of stuff that guys have been playing around with that and getting their running going smoother. And then there's sort of a lot of different. There's quite a few guys with really heavy movement sort of background, like Ricardo Collins with his 25-second one arm handstand, but then he's also really like strong with the barbell and sort of integrating movements together. And I think we're really arriving to a mastermind in fitness that hasn't really happened yet, of people who've gone really deep on ATG, people have gone really deep on powerlifting. And I've gone back and messaged Kevin Simmons, who coached the first American weightlifting coach to coach a world champion in weightlifting for a very long time. Is Kevin Simmons, who's also an ATG coach. He applied the ATG stuff, and their lifts went up 3 to 5%. And with that 3 to 5%, they broke world records. They had a girl break a world record, and like that's in the junior weightlifting. He's a super smart guy. I interviewed him for ATG way back and just messaged him again the other day. Like, what happens if we pull like all of these kind of conversations together across different sports? And that's what I've always been fascinated by. Like, that's kind of what Real Movement was. And then it was fun to do the ATG for coaches thing. And I think it's really important that movement exists. I think that support for ATG is really important. And I think that's going to continue to be really important. And I love that. And but there's this other conversation of how does it all combine, and what would the ultimate kind of combinations be for different scenarios. It's like a question that can never be answered, but one that is worth answering for each individual and each individual sport.
Yeah. I think you're right. Like bringing, I mean, more heads are stronger than one. Like, just, and the conversations that at least like I have on, I'm sure everyone's like this. We have these calls on the conversations, and you kind of almost, you just, you'll be talking with someone, you'll kind of just like new ideas will pop up, or just you get more creative just kind of talking and thinking out loud, and like just things become, they manifest, they happen from just these conversations. So getting us together, there's going to be some pretty cool things coming up.
Yeah, it feels like it's brand new. It feels like we're sort of 1 month into this experiment now. And I heard once that imagination is really like the melding of ideas that haven't been melded before. And that's, I think that's the opportunity that we have here, is bringing people with all different interests and backgrounds from all different cultures and languages. And if we put our hearts together first and then our minds together second, it's like, what's that going to do? I don't think that's been done. Like there's a bunch of times where the minds get together at different conferences around the world and stuff, but there's usually no heart, where there's actually heart in this. Like you see Bali Time Chamber and you think like, yeah, this is going to be good for my head, but this is also going to be good for my heart. Like this is something different. And yeah, the knowledge side of it is, I think, will go further because of that spiritual connection and the ability to really get in sync and kind of create that environment where it's okay to be different as well and think differently. And I love that it's going there. Like even Ben says it to me, like, oh, you don't believe that guy, do you? Like Ben sometimes says about something that's popped up in the community. And let's challenge it. Like, let's ask the question. Let's have the conversation, because who knows what we're missing, or there's no point like dismissing something. It's just knowing its place. That's the thing. So we kind of derailed your neck thing there, though. So neck training. How do you put that into the program? Like, is that something you do like often, or is it done on the mats, or is it done once a week, or where does it fit?
So honestly, I need to incorporate neck training more. I've been working the rotation, flexion, extension. I think with neck training, it needs to be worked more with, within my programs. I need to put it in probably. I think it'd be good for grapplers to practice neck training 2 to 3 times a week, and that's an area that I need to incorporate more. I think that especially speaking of the traps, I mean, making the trap stronger, I think I was talking to Zach Mobius about this. It's almost like it's like a backboard almost for the neck, like kind of the stabilization for the actual neck. I think that there's probably something there with having strong traps for people who have strong trap muscles. And not just the upper traps, but the mid and the lower, and healthy functioning shoulders. I think that makes the neck stronger as well. So
Yeah.
yeah, long story, need to incorporate it more.
Yeah, it's one of those things that Charles Poliquin used to say that if you improve the neck extension strength, like it's one of the fastest ways to improve overall strength. He used to talk about grip strength like that, and he spoke about neck strength like that. But I never really took it on too much. It's kind of one of those things that, because it's often not very quantifiable and it's sort of like not that fun, and it's one of those things that can easily kind of slip into the background. But yeah, it's keen to see how you go exploring it further. I like the sound
Yes.
of what you're sharing there with the programs. What are you doing in terms of the high rep stuff? The repetition method is the forgotten method in the conjugate method, I think.
Well, so I've been working the high reps with Jurgis plan. He's been incorporating those a lot. So as far as the high reps, we've been doing blood days is what he calls them, and that's where it's literally 100 to 150 reps of different movements, and it's mostly body weight, or it might have some bands in there, but it's low repetition bands. And I'm excited to take that and bring those into my programs moving forward, because I think it's just so valuable, especially for healing and just the short range, right? Getting in the short range work. So it's been really cool to experience firsthand with myself going through it, and I'm going to be adding those to the plans moving forwards.
Very cool. So let's get back a little bit to the business journey. You've, I remember when we first spoke about online, you were kind of like, oh, I don't know if I want to do it. I don't know if I can do it. Like you were doing face-to-face and you're making some decent money. I think you got support there. Like Ben Clearfield stuff probably helped you a bit to get some mentoring from him and get confidence around pricing and feeling like your programs are good. What about the online sort of, tell us a bit about, that journey to getting some clients, and then working with Dylan as well, and that part.
Yeah, so with last year, I was in person basically the Monday through Friday. I was living in the gym, and as much as I love training, I didn't like living in the gym all day long. And at that point in time, I was still a part of Uncom, but I hadn't boosted up to at that point it was the launch, but now the pro option. So I went to I took a vacation. I got some time away, and when I came back, I knew that I wanted to shift online, and that I needed to start taking it more seriously, and just really hit the ground running. And when I came back, that's when you first started marketing launch, and which is now the pro basically. And I saw it, and I was like, all right, I need to do this. I need to really go all in. So when I first started, it was August of this last year, and I just started selling programs to clients in the gym. And at first, I was selling them for like $75 a pop, and I remember telling you, and you're like, man, if you're selling them for that cheap, like, why should I buy your program? Like, that doesn't sound that good. And I was like, you're right. I need to charge more for them. And I, so I started bringing up the prices, but I just started marketing myself to clients in the gym firsthand. And then I started to post more on Instagram, and I just tried to post valuable content that, I felt like would help people. And that was the main thing. And from August until December, I went from really having a few clients in August, and then each month I started getting more and more, to the point where in December I had at the beginning I had about 25 clients, and I was at that point I was less tied to the gym, and I didn't have to spend as much time, and I shifted to about probably 60% in the gym and then 40% online.
Yep.
And then you posted about Dylan Fowler, and I remember you saying, if you want to grow your online business, like you need to reach out to Dylan. This guy is putting more bums in seats than anyone in the fitness industry right now. Like he's doing a great job. And I was like, boom, sold. Like I'm gonna reach out to Dylan. So I hit up Dylan at the beginning of December and just reached out and signed up for his Mamba program.
Were you
And
pretty nervous about that at that stage, or how did you feel?
my thoughts on it was I just knew I wasn't necessarily nervous, but uh, I was excited. I was excited about it. I had seen that I was growing from August until December. So like at that point, I was like, okay, like I've started to make progress, and I could see it. The numbers are starting to show. And then at that point, I was like, my thought process was Dylan's just going to help me grow exponentially faster. So by getting Dylan, like it's going to help speed up my progress. So yeah, I started Dylan's program, and I recommend Dylan to anyone who's trying to grow online. Dylan does a fantastic job, and he teaches you the system of really how to post and the frequency behind it, and just really how to share your story and how to post valuable content. So in December, like I started, and like anything, there's some growing pains. There was learning curve behind it, and there like to make progress in it. There's a lot of daily action steps that you have to take that you know of, and anyone who's been growing online, that you have to do a certain amount of outreach every day. You have to cold message, DM people, and you have to post. You have to post on your story. They recommend several different hours. Posting every several different hours, and then you have to post some content that's going to actually help people, that you have to put out like good into the universe. You have to put good out, you'll get good back. Like I really believe in karma, and you get what you give. So yeah, at first it was tough. It was not easy, and it was uncomfortable, and it honestly, like since then, it's been great. I've doubled my clients. There's ups and downs with it. There's times where I'm hitting a stride. It feels easy. I'm like, I've already got content. This is great. And then there's days where I'm like, I don't want to post right now. Like I like this. There's just resistance, right? And I guess that's just the entrepreneurial journey. It's just the peaks and the valleys, and learning how to ride out the waves, and keep a level head when and that's been my takeaway since December, and it's been paying off since.
So what price and what product have you been selling lately?
So with the prices and the products, I basically have three different prices and products that I offer right now. And my premium it's 500 a month. And with that, you get a custom program. The client gets a meal plan. They get, if they're in person, it's been up to 4 sessions in person. So there's a little bit of a hybrid model. And if they're not in person, then it's calls. They get 4 calls, so weekly calls. And then the mid tier price is the I call my MVP, and it's I had been playing around with 2 different price points, with 300 and 200. With the clients on the 300 price point, that was a 1 session a month if they're in person, and then they get the meal plan, and then they get direct access to me, and response time. And then the 200 a month was they get a program, they get a meal plan, and if they're in person, those price points have been, or the what I offer is the semi-private session. So where multiple people who are on that program can come together, and I book them at the same time and see them in person. And then the third option has been 150 a month, and that's where the client will get a program, and then I also provide them with a meal plan and then an onboarding call to walk them through their journey and help them reach their goals. So as you can see, there's been 3 different price points, but there's still some variability in there, and I'm still figuring out like the just how to really hone in everything and figure out like how I can serve people best, and fair price points that reflect that. And yeah, it's been a learning process, but there's growth behind it.
And so you selling that over the phone usually for the 500 a month, or how do people usually end up on that?
Yeah, usually it's been through the phone, and so like most of my clients, a lot of them I meet through Instagram, and I'll do the DM game and reach out to them and just see if they're a good fit, and then I'll try to book a call, and then we'll book a call and then go from there. Um, a couple of them have been from in person, but yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. And so, yeah, you've got a ton of skills there now that you didn't have before, things that were really uncomfortable that now you've done a few times. Like where you see yourself going with this? If we had to predict, if we're going to watch this back on April 12, 2024, and you put your predictions down now, and there was going to be $1 million on the line, what would you say you'd be doing this time next year?
Well, at this point next year, I want to be just doing everything that I'm doing right now at a much higher level. So just have like I want my products to be even better than they are right now. And as far as revenue goes, and I want to be making more. And sometimes it's even saying a number like my goal for the end of the year is to be making 15K a month, and to be to the behind that, I want to have success stories. So I like what I don't want is to provide a product that doesn't get people results, and that people are discouraged by. That motivates me to create the best product I can to really change people's lives through what I'm doing. So at this point next year, yeah, I want to be doing what I'm doing now, growing as an online coach, um, and have products that have success stories. Have even more success stories than I do right now. I've already helped a lot of people in Sacramento and even outside of Sacramento that I've changed their life, and they've told me about it, that they're operating at a level with their body and that they didn't think that they could get to, and that it's really changed their life, which motivates me to just continue on and to become better. So yeah, at this point next year, I wrote down that um, I wrote down a number for the 4 year, and I believe it was over 50 transformations, like life changing transformations. So if at this point next year, that's over 15 transformations, or close to it, would be a great number. And yeah, doing that, changing people's lives. That's what I want to be doing.
If it's usually exponential though, if you look at where you were in April last year versus where you are this year, you're likely to have more improvement if you continue to associate with people who are further ahead and you continue to stay motivated. Like the possibilities of exponential progress since you do have online. Like think about how far you've come since April last year. It really is possible to go to a whole another level. And yeah, that's the conversation of how can you scale it? How can you bring more of a team in? How can you get a professional sales team behind what you're doing? How do you create world-class funnels? These are the kind of questions that Daniel's just joined us as an intern to play a part with this. You probably haven't met him, but that's probably a good next conversation to have. But he's done well with advertising. He's selling some physical products, but he's passionate about marketing and how to get that message across. And that's where he's joining us to sort of explore more of that and learn more of that. But maybe I can throw to you, Daniel, if you're okay there. You look like you're all tuned in. Like, how does hearing this story of sort of Nick changing his life by building his business, what are you hearing here? What opportunities do you see?
I think I don't know his background specifically, but I think I'm seeing a trainer who is opening up a whole new market that wasn't really accessible for him before. You know, when you turn online, there's just this whole big group of available clients which weren't really available in your direct location. So I think, once you open up for that, you basically open up for the whole world. And I think there's a lot of people out there that need our help, and in this case, your specific help. But I think everyone has their own speciality, you know, and I think it's just a matter of finding and connecting with those people that need your experience. Yeah.
Yeah. It's pretty crazy to think about just, how accessible people are through Instagram and online. It's wild. It's through our phone, like at our fingertips, and to really Keegan, you talked about this, but you said you have to help 100 people to really be successful. And that's not crazy numbers when you think about just how many people are out there.
Yeah, you don't need
Daniel was from Holland. Living in Thailand and selling in the US.
Yeah.
Wow.
That was weird. Yeah. So we're in a country abroad selling products to a market we've never seen, living in a country. Basically we've only seen like test products, and then we shipped thousands of products across the other side of the world and then sold them through a whole marketplace, which we were just a tiny part of, you know, and everything was taken care of. While not even touching a warehouse or a shipping company, or, you know, it's so strange to experience. Yeah.
That's incredible. That's, it's especially I think being in this industry and really selling knowledge and selling accountability and selling these things that it's not a physical thing. It's so much easier to sell than having to ship these other things which it's a good industry to be in. And it really has a life-changing impact on people's lives, and there's millions of people out there who need help. So it's they just need to hear the message. So absolutely, Daniel, we should definitely connect.
That's cool. Is your program sport specific, or is it one program for multiple different grappling sports?
So it's catered towards grapplers, so that could be BJJ practitioners and wrestlers. It seems like right now I'm marketing more towards BJJ, but it could branch out more into the wrestling community, and that'll probably happen as I show the success that my high school and my junior college team are having.
How does it differ between BJJ and wrestling, where I don't think wrestling, you don't have the same submissions, like you're not getting the extended elbows and knee things. How does that differ with the marketability and delivery of the program?
Yeah, well, I think more so it's different because with wrestling, usually the wrestlers stop after their so the market's really from youth to 22, early 20s, whereas jiu-jitsu is, people practice jiu-jitsu from, a young age, but then all the way up till they're 50s, 60s, 70s even. So it seems like there's a wider market for jiu-jitsu, but there's also a market for wrestling.
What about in terms of the programming then? As it comes to like, obviously you're more likely to get some sort of joint injury, and when you're getting elbow locks and all that sort of stuff, arm bars and
With jiu-jitsu?
Yeah, with jiu-jitsu,
Yeah. So with jiu-jitsu, I've been focusing more on marketing, as far as like coming back from injuries and marketing towards being able to roll pain-free. So in terms of like programming, I mean, really like the programming that I use for jiu-jitsu would work for wrestling, and really vice versa. Like they need the same things, but it's the marketing seems to be um, a little bit different for jiu-jitsu, whereas marketing towards like getting out of pain, because those grapplers are usually dealing with some sort of ache or pain, and whereas wrestlers are the marketing, I think that would be more effective, and I'll find this out, is
yeah, that's really interesting. It's funny, it's because for BJJ, especially with older men who are doing business and they've they're open training on the side and not so much the actual recovery side. And it seems like, at least as far as what I've seen and been exposed to them.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I haven't seen as many coaches marketing towards coming back from injury or healing. It's here in Sacramento, Josh Setledge, he's doing a fantastic job. Yeah, Ben, are you where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Sydney, Australia.
Oh, cool, very cool.
Where Keegan's was based for a long time with the Roosters. Awesome. I was going to ask you as well, before we were talking more on the training side, how do you think about group training as it relates to grappling?
Group training, as far as what, like anything?
Just in general, like I've just been playing. I've got a couple of little grip implements that I've been using in the last couple of weeks, just out of interest. I know it's a big area that Keegan's had a lot of focus on, and I was wondering, is it something that you train specifically because it's a really important component, or is it's so trained in the sport training itself that it's not something that you try to factor in?
No, it's definitely something that I factor in. I have the captains of crush, that the grippers that I'll have clients use, and all sorts of carries, like farmers carries, fantastic. The fat grips are a great implement. Have you used any of those?
Yeah. I was playing with a couple of those before.
Okay, yeah, there's the captain
and the fat grippers as well.
Oh, you got the fat grip too?
Yeah. Although it's a funny one to try and to use when, like, because you always sub-maximal, whatever you're going to use the fat grips on, you're always sub-maximal, and it's like, how do you think about programming that in where whatever the movement might be, whether it's chins or deadlifts or something, that the actual stimulus you're putting on the, like, the actual movement is going to be less than what you would get with a thinner bar. So yeah, that's something I've been playing around, is like, is that an accessory? So you go lighter, but you focus on it being a grip movement, or I
think it'd be better to use as an accessory, because of what you just talked about. Like, you wouldn't want it to take away from the max, your main movements, the A block or the primary movements. I think the fat grips would be better as far as the accessory work, to get that pump, especially with the upper body.
What about because something I was thinking about with another guy who does the gi jiu-jitsu, how different it is gripping something really thin, like the collar versus, you know, like you see like your hands, you know, semi-closed already when you're doing this, and it's quite a large thing to be holding on to as opposed to a really thin piece of fabric. Have you thought much about or got any thoughts on that?
That's a great point. They actually make these grips they're like the gi material, and then you can attach them. It's like a cable. You can attach it to like you know, any sort of cable machine, and that works the same thing. Because that definitely needs to be worked, especially for people who use mostly gi, who train mostly gi.
Yeah, that's really interesting, because I suppose when you consider like wrestling is the complete opposite, where you're actually having a lot of like really open hand gripping, right? And it's like quite a different stimulus to, it's not crushing grip. It's like a, I don't know, how would you describe it? But it's like reminds me of doing chin-ups on like a really big open pole where you have to be like sort of holding on. It's almost a bit more like rock climbing.
Yeah, it's like palming, you know, like
Yeah.
I have a tool they make I forget the company, but it's a block. It's a metal block that you grab. So like you're holding it like this. So you're challenging your fingers in more of a straight position. So I think
it's interesting.
I think with the grip, the more ways you challenge your grip, the better. Like variety is the spice of life. So it keeps the training fun too. And you know, it's at least for me, like if everything was fat grips, like I'd start dreading that, you know. Like, oh, God. You know, so having the variability in there is a good thing.
What about extensors, and thinking about sort of like reversing all the grip training that all these guys are doing in their actual, you know, training, competing?
Yeah. You know, the finger extensors are great. I have those too. Those are things that I think that with grapplers, it's stuff that I think they should be doing, you know, really. I mean, it'd be great to do in the session too, but I think especially like outside of the session, like just that's something I need to encourage them to do more, is like, guys, you should be, you know, working on your extensors and doing that.
It's very accessible, isn't it? Like I was just playing around with when you know when you get a new gym band thing, and you get the you just get the little mini one that wraps it up in. I was just using that for it without even needing to get a specific. I mean, obviously any rubber band works, but it's quite, this one's quite good actually.
Yeah. Oh, there you go. Yeah. Or even getting some rubber bands.
I got one of these too. I don't know the value of it yet, but these ones.
Yeah.
So you can get the sort of like
I have
fingery ones.
I have one of those in my car. I like the Captains of Crush more personally.
Okay.
But I mean, that's good too, you know.
I recently got one of the, I always screw up the name of it, dynamometer.
Yeah, dynamic.
And just started tracking with that. It's one of the things that early on with real movement, Keegan was encouraging. Most of the gyms had one. And so it was something that we were doing as a standard measure every morning. It's quite interesting. So I've set up an app now. Every morning I'll do three right, 3 left scores. So right, left, right, left, right, left at first thing getting up. And that goes in and puts an average score in for the day, and then tracks my grip strength over day to day. And I actually end up feeding, it's quite interesting. I feed that data into ChatGPT, and it runs an analysis over the period of the last week. And then it can give me interesting little tidbits of information that you can find out about how the grip strength's tracking. But it's surprising how the sleep and fatigue you can see reflecting on the grip scores.
Yeah.
Like it's a significant drop by like 10% at least on a bad sleep day, or if I've had like a heavy neural training day the day before. And it's really interesting because I might feel okay, but the grip's down. And then when I go train later thinking that I'm fine, I don't train the same. Like I feel weak, I feel tired, I feel fatigued. I'm like, okay, well, the grip was a really good indicator that's, you know, I should have probably had a lighter session, or I should have adjusted for that number.
Yeah, that's really interesting. That's something that I just haven't really taken a dive into. I wrote that down though. Get dynometer. Like that's something that I think is very, very valuable, especially a coach focusing on grappling. I'm gonna get one.
They're super cheap too. Like I bought that one on Amazon. It would have been like probably like $30. Came the next day, and yeah, it's a really interesting piece of equipment to have on hand. Yeah, and obviously then you can actually have a metric for grip strength as it relates to, obviously it's just the crushing grip, but it's hard with the captain's crush. You're either going for reps or you're going for a bump up into the next one, and it's hard to see the incremental gains each day. But when you actually have a number of like, this is the pounds that I put in yesterday, today, next day, it's really easy to see and actually track the progress of it with real numbers.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. I can imagine. Can't wait to get one.
When we were training judo players, we would actually use the gi for training as well, you know, like you have the fat grips, and we would just attach a whole gi to the pull-up bar or something,
Yeah.
and do pull-ups or dead hangs with that. You know, even the gi between jiu-jitsu and judo is very different as well. It's like very thick for judo,
Really?
and some of the gis are very thin in jiu-jitsu. So even the difference between that makes a whole change in training, you know.
That, yeah, I can imagine that. I think it'd be great to get more, even like parts of the gi to like put up on the pull-up bars.
Yeah.
And just like you're explaining. That's
The
amazing.
sleeve or something, you can just cut it off from an old gi, and you can do pulls with it, or it's so sport specific, right?
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
it absolutely is. So Daniel, I'm just seeing your message. Do I use submission specific movements in the program? So you know, as far as like submission specific, there are movements that translate really well to submission, you know, to submissions, but it I think of, so the short answer is yes. I do incorporate movements that I think will help with submissions. You know, a couple of them, just, you know, off the top of my head, like Nordic curls for the hamstrings for grapplers to finish triangle chokes, like, you know, to really train the biceps of the legs, right? The hamstrings. Yeah, so Nordics are one that first come to mind. I think all of the different mobility movements just help so much with submissions. Like, you know, I wrote a bunch of them down, like the Cossack squat, being able to get, you know, in that deep range of motion, sitting your butt to one side, like opening up the groin. That's one. As far as like other movements that lead to submissions, I think like a pigeon stretch, like, you know, or like a 90-90 to a pigeon, like holding that is so key for grapplers, just especially for jiu-jitsu, like being able to get into triangle.
Yeah. And what about arm bars or like kimuras or something like that? Do you train for that?
So the knee on the elbow, the external rotation.
Okay.
Have you seen that one?
Yeah.
Yeah, with the dumbbell. That's like I think that literally is like a Kimura defense, because once you get good at that, like you can get into that deep range. So even if someone's cranking on your arm with a Kimura, like you're better off than not being strong in those ranges. As far as arm bars, just like now I've been getting into the band training, which I want to incorporate in future programs, but just the long levers, like the band training where the arms are long, pulling your arms down, like I think that stuff's amazing. Yeah. Okay. Here's Keegan. How you saying? Yeah. Great chat, Keegan. Looking forward to next week. He's saying 4-year plan a month for you to dive deep. Yes. Cool. Sweet. Well, do you guys have any other questions before we start wrapping it up? It's starting to probably got a couple more minutes before I'm gonna have to jam out.
Just an interesting point on that last bit, just thinking about the armbar stuff, like lockouts in dips and like bar dips as well as ring dips in terms of that instability, but especially going heavy. Like I was lucky enough to spend a 9-month period training with Keegs every day and doing dips. We do a lot of like overloaded, almost you go heavier than you can actually do a 4-range dip in, but you'll do partial range lockouts on the top of the dip. And, you know, you can feel how heavy and overloaded the actual load is on the elbow. You've got enough strength, obviously you can lock it out. Like it's similar to doing the lockouts in the bench press, but it's a different position, you know, with your body weight as well on top. But very quickly you sort of adjust to that, like your body sort of gets really attuned to having that weight and locking out. And I find that's like a really interesting way of thinking about, obviously once it goes past a certain point, it's going to break. There's nothing you can do about that. But at least if you're comfortable in that position, you can hold that completely locked elbow with a lot of strength because of that. I find like, you know, if you're just doing reps of dips or bench, like you're not actually focusing on getting heavy enough load in that very small range.
Right. That's amazing, Ben. Yeah, I wrote that down. Partial range lockout dips. I think there's something to I've heard about strength coaches really overloading like the top portion of a movement. Like I've heard them do that with like squats. That way you're touching the weight, you know, even at the top portion. But I could see how that has an incredible amount of carryover into the actual like strength of the joint and, you know, for the mat, like locking out a dip position like that, just the short range, right? The short range of motion.
I guess it's almost similar to doing the Romanian rhythm squats in ATG, where you're getting that sort of like top end range, although obviously you're not trying to like completely lock your knees and hold that locked position with the load. But in dips, you know, you need to be resting in that. Ideally, you're resting in that completely locked position, and the carryover is into handstands because obviously you're not able to hold a handstand with a bent elbow. You're just fatiguing. You're fatiguing all the muscle. You just actually need to be resting on the bones themselves. And in order to do that, you need to be strong in the lockout position and in the stability of keeping that lock. Because often you'll see when people start fatigue, their arm will start to bend, and it's, you know, they're not able to just withstand that completely locked elbow position. And all the same with the shoulder and the rest of the body.
Right. See, this is what I love about strength training. There's so many different ways to do it, and you know, like there's so many nuances to it, and there's ways to focus on just things that are easily overlooked but have such a big carryover like that. Yeah, amazing.
Awesome.
Any other questions, guys, or like
where can people find your program?
Where?
Yeah, where can we find the program?
So you can find me on Instagram at Move with Nick. I'll put it in the chat.
Do you have a website as well?
I don't have a website yet, so that's something that I need help with.
Okay.
Yeah. So that'd be okay. Let's connect on that, man. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. But yeah, Instagram's the main way to connect with me on social, and yeah, I've got that up and running.
Cool. Perfect.
Well, all right, guys. It's been a blast, you know, being on here, and like thank you guys for, you know, sharing this time with me and you know, joining me, and I look forward to connecting with you guys in the future. This is cool, and you know, beyond grateful to, you know, to be here in this position, and you know, I'm stoked that you guys joined me for the last bit of time.
Thanks, Nick. It was awesome hearing your story. Look forward to connecting again.
Yeah, cool. Keegan, thank you. Everyone, thank you. Whether it's day or night, have a great rest of the day or night, wherever you guys are. Peace.
See ya.